The Dry. Stream free on ITVX.
Now, with all the stories making the weekend headlines, it's the ITV News.
A state of emergency is declared in Mississippi as a killer tornado leaves 26 Americans dead. It's destroyed lives, homes and businesses, virtually wiping out entire towns. President Biden says he's praying for the relatives.
Luckily, we were able to get quite a few people out from underneath the rubble, but there still seems to be people stuck as of right now.
Also tonight, another warning to the West. President Putin says he'll station tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine's neighbour, Belarus. End of an era, victory for England's rugby women as their record-breaking star leaves the field for the very last time. And a special honour for some of the late Queen's aides, including the 8 pallbearers who carried her coffin into her funeral.
This is ITV News with Kylie, Pentelow.
Good evening. A tornado has all but destroyed entire towns in Mississippi and America, leaving at least 26 people dead. A state of emergency has been declared, and tonight President Biden said he was praying for the relatives of the dead and missing. He also promised to provide support for as long as it takes to recover. The devastation and wreckage is vast. Enormous piles of rubble is all that's left of lives, homes, communities and businesses. Neil Connery has the latest.
Is there a big tornado, big wedge? Look at it, huge wedge!
Even the storm chasers who spend their lives running towards these phenomena were blown away by the size of this one.
Whoa! You see it? It's a mile wide!
Oh man, like north side of Amory, this is coming in.
As he watched it bear down on Amory, Mississippi, weatherman Matt Lauben could only think of one thing to say.
Dear Jesus, please help them. Amen.
He'd already warned his viewers their situation was life-threatening, and by morning it was clear he had been right. The tiny town of Rolling Fork was, its mayor said, simply gone, and those who raced to the scene for the purposes of filming action set aside their cameras and did what they could to help.
When I got here last night as the first one here on scene, I actually had pulled multiple people out of some collapsed homes. It took multiple hours to get these people out, but luckily we were able to get quite a few people out from underneath the rubble. But there still seems to be people stuck as of right now.
Reporters called it a direct hit in Rolling Fork, where the residents ran from their homes in terror. Search and rescue teams from across Mississippi poured into the area to assist the living and help retrieve the dead.
We had to help dead bodies out of the house. So that is very disturbing. Like actually seeing people losing their lives over a bad weather like this.
Got in the bathroom, in the tub with my wife, and all threw pillows over us, and we could hear stuff hitting the roof, a lot of trees.
The tornado has swept on, unweakened, towards Alabama, but the destruction it wrought will be felt here for months and years to come. Neil Connery, ITV News.
President Putin tonight announced plans to station tactical nuclear weapons in neighbouring Belarus, in what's seen as a warning to the West not to step up its military support for Ukraine. He insisted that Russia would not be violating any nuclear weapon non-proliferation treaties because, he said, America has long deployed its nuclear weapons in Europe. Our correspondent Rebecca Barry has been keeping up with these developments and joins me now. Rebecca, this sounds a potentially frightening escalation. How dangerous is it?
Well, this is the first time since its invasion of Ukraine that Russia has announced a plan to station nuclear weapons in another country. We're talking about tactical nuclear weapons designed for use on the battlefield, not for faraway targets like cities. President Putin says it follows the UK's decision to supply Ukraine with ammunition which Russia falsely claims has a nuclear component. Belarus is a close ally of the Kremlin. It's been used as a staging post for troops ever since the invasion of Ukraine last year. So are we now one step closer to a nuclear conflict? Well, observers point out that Putin is well known for posturing, and of course its nuclear arsenal is a powerful reminder of its military strength. And having Russian-controlled nuclear weapons in Belarus, right next to Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, on the border of EU and NATO territory, could be a very valuable tool with which to blackmail the West. But threatening to use these weapons and actually doing so are a long way off. And I think it's significant tonight that there hasn't been any significant international reaction. There's been no knee-jerk condemnation from the West, which could in fact escalate rhetoric. But some say that there needs to be a strong response in the form of further sanctions on Russia.
Rebecca, thank you very much. Two boys, aged 14 and 16, have been remanded in custody after being charged with the murder of another teenager. 16-year-old Rohan Chand was stabbed to death in Northampton on Wednesday. The two accused boys can't be named because of their age. They're due to appear at Northampton Crown Court on Monday. And there have been more clashes between police and protesters in France today. This time it wasn't about pension reforms. Today's dispute was over the building of a new reservoir for farmers, which has angered local residents who complain they suffer badly during summer droughts. And the government's just announced new plans to help tackle antisocial behaviour. Rishi Sunak, who will reveal the details on Monday, said they will crack down on antisocial behaviour once and for all. Well, our political reporter Amy Lewis joins me now. Amy, what more can you tell us about this scheme?
Well, there were 1.1 million cases of antisocial behaviour reported to police in the year up until September. This includes things like criminal damage, threatening a neighbour. Clearly, for victims, it is incredibly distressing. It will likely be one of the key battlegrounds leading up to the election, which, of course, is expected to be next year. Earlier this week, Sir Keir Starmer outlined Labour's plans for tackling crime, and now on Monday, we've been told that the Prime Minister will be laying out his plans specifically for antisocial behaviour. And as part of that, offenders would have 2 days to clear up any damage that they've caused, for example, with fly tipping or graffiti. And if it's already been cleared up, then they could be forced to do things like wash police cars in high-vis jackets, they state, and in jumpsuits. Now, police and also victims would get more say as well in terms of the punishment that offenders are given as part of this plan that's going to be launched on Monday, as you say, by the Prime Minister. Labour tonight have told me that the government are out of ideas and they are out of time when it comes to cracking down on antisocial behaviour. 10 pilots initially, we haven't been told where, but 10 pilots initially would be put in place across England and Wales, and then next year it would be rolled out across those two nations. We haven't been given details about how much money would be put into this. However, we will find out more details on Monday.
OK, Amy, thank you very much. Today was the opening day of rugby's Women's Six Nations. It was also the end of an era. The world's most capped player, Sarah Hunter, played her last game for England, and her 141st appearance for the defending champions was worthy of the record. Chris Scudder reports on how she helped England trounce Scotland 58-7 in Newcastle.
After 16 years and 141 caps, it was one last time for England captain Sarah Hunter on home soil in Newcastle. As one era was ending, another was starting. This was the first time Scotland had played a Six Nations match as professionals.
McDonald.
In the 4 years advantage England have had from being full-time pros, they've run away with the Six Nations every time. And here they were again, running the Scots ragged. There was redemption too for the heartbreak of losing last year's World Cup final to New Zealand, their only loss in those 4 years. England were ruthless and scored 10 tries, including 3 from incoming skipper Marley Packer.
English rugby rises.
But nothing was going to upstage the final departure of the most capped women's player in history. And as Sarah Hunter left the field for the last time, there was barely a dry eye in the house.
Sarah Hunter, thank you.
Chris Scudder, ITV News.
Well, Wales also got their Six Nations campaign underway with a victory over Ireland in Cardiff. Wales scored 5 tries to win 31 points to 5. Scots. And finally, the pallbearers who carried the late Queen Elizabeth's coffin during her state funeral have been honoured for the roles they played. They're among scores of military personnel given awards in a special honours list. So too are some of the Queen's closest aides, including her dresser, who worked for Her Majesty for more than 25 years. Callum Watkinson has the details.
With the weight of the world on their shoulders, as billions watched every step, 8 young men silently carried out their final duty for the Queen. Now the pallbearers who carried Her Majesty's coffin have been bestowed honours for their role. The King awarding them the Silver Royal Victorian Medal in recognition of their service to his late mother. Servicemen who helped carry the Queen's coffin at her lying in rest in Edinburgh are also among those recognised in a special set of Demise Awards. The list also includes the RAF flight crew who transported the Queen's coffin from Scotland to London.
The Royal Victorian Order was created by Queen Victoria to reward people who had done a particular service to the royal family. Sometimes it would be service for many, many years, and sometimes it would be a particular service during those very moving and memorable days in September. So I think anyone who has received or will receive this award should be extremely proud of it.
Angela Kelly, Queen Elizabeth II's personal dresser, seen here on the right, has been made a Commander of the Royal Victorian Order. And the late Queen's stud groom, Terry Pendry, who stood beside her pony as the funeral cortege made its way into Windsor Castle, was also honoured. Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
Now, just before we go, a quick reminder that the clocks go forward tonight at 1 o'clock for the start of British summertime. So, unfortunately, that means we will lose an hour in bed. But that's it from me, from all of us here. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye-bye.
First thing today will be lovely and warm, and by breakfast time, it could be on the sunny side. Heinz Tomato Ketchup, no added sugar and salt, sponsors ITV National Weather.
A very good evening to you. The clocks are